to manage that new practice, because the worst case scenario for me, from Intel perspective, because a lot of worst case scenarios with AI, depending on what facet you're looking at, worst case
There
scenario
can be some.
would be that you have a decision maker that is using
Mhm.
the AI tool, and there is no experienced, insightful, trained mediator,
Mhm.
guide, advisor between that person and that tool to help them understand not just how to get the best out
Yeah,
of it from a quality assurance perspective, but also those ridiculous conversations we're not having about guardrails and about
yeah, yeah.
right and about new questions we should be asking in terms of implications and so on and so forth. That is the new human intelligence, right? That
Yeah.
we need to be expanding human into that. Anyway, sorry about that, but I just
No, no, no. It's
it sets me off.
absolutely true. And what you're going to find is, and I've been through so many iterations of this, as you know, the first LLMs and decades ago. If you allow all of the people in your organization to work on these tools without training, without guardrails, without, what do we want to use these for? You're going to get some really interesting stuff. Some of it's going to be great, some of it's going to be okay, and some of it's going to be a mess. And I've seen executives say, hey, I can do this with this. Let's put this right out there in the market. And the things that happen are just absolutely crazy. So I think that a good company is not going to do that. Companies need to be aware of the problems that they can get into, and not give it to everybody.
I mean, I was
You
give what to everybody when you say give it to
know,
everybody?
and not say to everybody, okay, now we have this fabulous tool, and get on there, everybody,
Oh,
and
yeah, okay,
find
yeah.
these
You mean
things.
asking people to use AI? I know
Yeah.
one of the things that we're seeing now, and actually this is kind of shifting the conversation away from the human a bit, but this is something that's also been on my radar and kind of chafing at. I've been chafing at quietly. So we're seeing a lot of reports in the news too about how these companies, Microsoft and others, are actually paring back to some degree, in varying degrees, in various ways, their use of AI, right, or
Mhm.
the requirements of the use of AI from their employees. And sometimes it's because people, they didn't quite define, again, the parameters. They
Right.
basically said to their employees, hey guys, we've got these new tools here. We just have a contract with Google, or,
Yeah.
Anthropic. Have at it. And in fact, we're going to sweeten the pot. We are going to turn this into a contest, and whoever can use
Oh, yeah.
AI the most, not most
Oh,
effectively,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
clock on the most, will earn these badges towards a reward. And so what do they get? They have people, who are basically just blowing through tokens. They're blowing through the budget. And of
Yeah.
course, some of them didn't even establish a budget, right? And they realize, oh crap, we're 6 months in, we already spent $500,000 on AI. And what do we have to
Yeah.
show for
I've
it?
seen a couple of those
And I would
articles.
say,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would say, so it's a whole lot. So we've got some people who are saying, well, AI is useless because of this. All these companies are abandoning
Oh,
it
yeah. Oh, yeah.
because they're blowing through all this stuff and they got nothing to show for it. So I'm a process person, right? That's what I do. I look at processes, I look at what's unseen, and AI wasn't the problem. Planning, design,
Yeah.
deployment, that was the problem. And so they didn't understand, or they didn't think about defining how AI could be used. There wasn't enough, sort of,
Yeah.
pre-work on this. They just basically, hey, use it because, oh yeah, the cost of using it, have been dropping. So let's do that. Well, now we're in June of 2026. So
Mhm.
the reason why the costs have also been dropping is, yeah, there are efficiencies, but also, these foundation models, these companies have been subsidizing the
Yeah.
use of AI to a degree.
Yeah.
They are this month they are starting to throttle back, and they're actually starting to really bill people for the use. So we're going to see actually that, the expenditures go up if people continue to use it as they have. But again, that doesn't mean that AI is the problem. It's that the AI isn't useful. It's that
Yeah.
you didn't help your employees frame how to use it effectively to
Right.
get the most out of it. And then again, the usual safeguards and the stress testing, validation, et cetera, that should go into all of this. This was never baked into the early process. It was more of just a, hey, everybody, pool's open, let's dive right in.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you don't even necessarily have a what do you call it? A guard, a
Yeah.
lifeguard on hand.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are focusing on that and saying AI is not working. And as a process person, I can see that AI really wasn't the core part of the problem. It was
Hmm.
really the way that it was structured. And so I think we're entering into a new era of this where we're going to think more deliberately about it, and we can begin to really exploit more out of it. Does not eliminate the fact that AI is flawed. Like let's establish that. But it does take us, I think, into this new phase where we're much more disciplined about it, and that discipline will give us better results. Even as every 4 months, the models are evolving and reaching new levels on average every 4 months. So now this latest iteration is the Fable 5.
Well,
So,
the things that I have seen are that people are throwing all of their technical people on these programs, machines, whatever you want to say, and they're firing the people who do the strategy and the intelligence. And so, it is not a process that's going to work for them. The process needs the technical people, but it also needs the strategic people, because whatever comes out of that, you have to look at it, examine it, evaluate it, and then you have the people who can, get more information. The strategic people. I mean the intelligence people. And if you fired them all, who's making the decisions? I mean, I've seen all over the place.
well, we saw what happened in the dot-com boom.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that there will be some clawback, right? There will be some people will recognize the errors of their ways, right? The hastiness, and perhaps, they'll dial that back a little bit, um, and recover. I have to say though, I think that given the rate of AI changing, and given tech biases, given a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that is we're not going to see that turnaround anytime soon. Um,
No.
satisficing, I think the idea, satisficing is a very powerful thing. Satisficing can be good because if you're an analyst, you need to reach a point of, okay, good enough, right? We reach
Yeah.
that point, otherwise you go into analysis paralysis. But satisficing, misapplied, means that you're going to be missing out on some very critical pieces. Because, so for example, like I mentioned, the scenario in which you have the end user and you have the intelligence tool in the form of AI, they think that that's a reasonable substitute for a human being,
Yeah.
or an entire system or team, and they're getting the results, and it's lighting up, the amygdala. It's powerful,
Yeah.
right? It's a powerful
Hmm.
drug, and so now you've got this hook. And so in a situation like that, I think barring any kind of unforeseen surprises, catastrophe that really wakes the person up and saying, okay, that's untenable, I need to find a new way. I don't know that we're going to see this happening in a wholesale fashion. I think it's going to be
Hmm.
more piecemeal, that people realize that maybe they let go of the wrong people and so forth. But the problem, though, under these different scenarios that I've been you know forming, is that in many of those cases, they will still not see the justification for bringing back an entire CI team, or CI as we knew it. So it may be that you have a person who may have the skill sets at the intersection of Intel and AI, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
subject matter expertise in AI. And then that will be the person they bring in. But that still means that you've got a loss, right? Well, beyond that person, there could be an
Right.
entire team that had just been let go or whatnot. So that is a change, but a lot of it is going to be self-service. So this is what we were talking about in the
Mhm. Yeah.
webinar. So if it is a self-service model, you still need to make a strong case. We still need to make a strong case that we have human in the loop, not just at the technical side, but between
Mhm.
the human, the user, and various other stakeholders, and the technical. So that's a system. So,
Yeah.
so the new Intel managers, if you will, and practitioners are going to have to understand how to do all that. That is across the multifunctional skills here. I think in many ways this benefits people who already have years of
It,
experience, who
it,
also have learned AI, because now we have the foundations on which to build. For up
yeah.
and comers who are digital natives, they will have the technology, but what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to develop a stronger underpinning of intel and subject matter expertise in human behavior. And I would argue human behavior for everybody, but I
Right.
can put in the model, during the webinar. Um, but I think that that's what we're moving towards, and is that you've got people who understand, who can help to design, manage, and oversee these things to ensure that the system works. But a lot of it is just going to be one-to-one. It's going to be that the decision maker or the user
Hmm.
asking the system, and then if they need be, bumping it to a human being. And that, I think we're going to see much more of that, for better or for worse. But I think that this is where, as practitioners need to be prepared to define that case, and even to shape the vision so that there is human in the system.
I don't know if this is off topic, but hearing about, who's going to do this, um, there are only certain people who can produce good ideas for new products and services. It takes a certain capability, a certain type of brain, someone absolutely committed to, researching and making sure it's going to work.
Sorry.
I don't think you're going to find many technology people that are going to come up with that. They may come up with systems that can make things work. I can't do that. But if you get rid of your product development people in favor of just using AI, it's not going to work
I don't
because,
see that happening. I,
yeah,
I actually don't. Yeah, I
yeah.
think
Well, that's
Intel
good.
will. Yeah, I think Intel will be sacrificed before those people will. Now, does that mean everybody's insulated there? No. I think across functions we are probably going to see that it's going to shrink, and obviously the junior positions and the tasks that could be automated, et cetera, that's going to go first. We've already started to see that. That's a projection. I don't know that. No, we're not. I think I don't think in the near future we're necessarily going to just hand things over to AI. Too many
Well, that's
unknowns,
good.
too many risks, et cetera. But and trust. Let's not forget.
Yeah,
Let's just assume we have a perfect system, right?
right.
Possible, but assume we have a perfect system, and you migrate towards that. Now, you're basically AI first, and everything's robust, efficient, everything you can ever hope for. Your customer still may not trust it. And that means everything. You're still not going to rely on it, because you're going to lose customers. So I think that it's the whole stakeholder environment, right?
Hmm.
That we have to think about here. But I think, obviously our conversation has been really focused more on how do we support
Yeah,
quality
yeah,
intelligence, right,
right.
through all of this. But scenario upon scenario upon scenario, there is just more and more, where you have various decision makers, whether or not they're functional decision makers, or at least top decision makers, there is less mediation through Intel, right? More of
Right.
these tools is just, hey, I got this idea in my head. And if it's, any time of day, I can ask the system before I go to somebody else. And I don't have to kind of do the whole. And I think psychologically, we've become that too.
Yeah.
Psychologically, we've become more isolated and we engage with people less in our
Hmm.
personal and our public spheres.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's becoming our default mode. And so the whether or not AI is a superior product, right, is irrelevant when there
Yeah.
is just the impulse or the desire, the preference to engage on our
Yeah.
own over the collective, or in a consultative way.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that we've been neglecting the psychological aspect of stakeholders for a very long time in this. And as we're talking about tools, we're focusing on a lot of these different dimensions about functionality and, ROI and costs, et cetera, you know, efficiency and stuff. But we're not focusing enough on, hey, if somebody is comfortable using it and they're engaging in satisficing, it's good enough for them, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if, okay, there's a 30% fail rate. They're still going to lean
Right.
into that first.
Yeah,
And
they are.
and even if they ultimately were to work with a human, whether or not they're forced to because of the product, they still will have engaged with the tool. And one of my concerns is that as they engage with these tools, the output of those tools, whatever quality it is, it's going to anchor them to that output.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now we've already talked, system one, system two thinking, right?
Right.
There's the biases. You've got the anchoring effect that's also happening here as they're engaging in their own, sort of
Yeah.
personal ecosystem.
Okay.
That becomes problematic too. So these are layers of things we haven't talked about before. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of, I'm almost like offloading a lot of things I've been thinking about. Um,
Well,
but these are, I think, are very real questions that I think have not been considered enough in,
yeah,
in the field.
absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's probably time for concluding thoughts.
I guess.
Yeah. So
What's your
where
what's
are
your
you?
concluding
Oh, I think
thought?
that was it. It's I think
Um,
this whole session has been a concluding thought for me. You know,
yeah,
just a lot of branching, just because these developments always bring a lot of questions. And I think that for many of us, too often what I'm seeing out there in the conversations that I'm trying to have with people, people are focusing on what's right in front of them.
right.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
the developers are already, years ahead. And then the marketers are already, 6 months ahead. Marketers of
Yeah,
this tool. Um,
right. Yeah,
so we're not doing that. We're not exercising foresight. So again, like I said,
we need to do that.
I know I'm being a little facetious here when I'm, saying, oh yeah, too many people are just focusing on prompting, but in
Yeah,
a way that, or agentic, but or agent, I should say, because agentic is the next level of, um, but we're not, well, so if we don't fully understand the whole process of
mm,
how intelligence is truly generated, as well as um, how we engage with our users, and then the AI layer, on top of that, we don't know what's missing. We don't know where the gaps are. We don't know where the
yeah,
dependencies are. So I think it increases our failure risks.
yeah,
Um, and I'm seeing too many people still just tactically thinking, how can I use AI for win loss and battle cards? I'm
right.
sorry, but we need to be thinking way above that.
Oh yeah,
um and because that's what these tools are going to be doing. It's going to, you know it's a big dome, and it's going to subsume all of that.
yeah. It's multiplying. It's not going in one direction. It's just multiplying. And you try this, you try that. Your boss thinks it's perfect. Another boss doesn't think it's perfect. I mean, it makes working and creating things much more difficult in some
Well,
ways.
I would even say though, I think beyond the question of perfection or efficacy or anything, I think what I see more common is just uncertainty.
Yeah,
It's not even
that's
a
true.
matter of people having opinions. I think most people I talk to don't even know where they should be thinking. They're not even sure what opinions they
Yeah,
should be having. I think that's most common. Um, and and they don't know how they can form opinions. That's another
exactly.
comment. We can even have a webinar
Yeah,
on this too, because I can share with people how I keep current and all that. But
right.
um, it's not low effort. I'll say that,
No,
right? But
not.
the alternative is worse.
Yeah.
So, but I think for most people, it's not even whether or not it's effective. I think it's just I don't know, and I think that's a fair position because the real answer is it depends,
Yeah.
right?
And
So
we'll see.
yeah, it depends, and
It'll
if we
take
don't have
time.
yeah, and if we don't have, I think the proper training and then the proper mindset on top of that, it's going to be very hard to discern those
Mhm.
differences, right? To understand the dependencies and situations in which, yeah, it is effective and it's not effective because it can be variable, right?
Yeah.
It might be
Yeah.
effective in one situation, one
Mhm.
circumstance or use case, but in another one, it's not for very good reasons. And we're not thinking enough about that as well. But things are moving, in fairness, things are moving so rapidly, it is hard for
Mhm.
people to keep pace. That, again,
Yes,
that's why we have to talk to people
definitely.
who know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're not doing that enough because I think too many of us are isolated for too many reasons. Valid reasons, I get it, right?
Yeah.
Busy, we're tapped out, and all that. Um, but it's all the more important that we have conversations,
Yes.
right? Use
And
other people as your eyes and ears so that you
right.
can
Exactly.
improve your own situational awareness. You can pick up on those signals, earlier and not be caught flat-footed, as
Right.
I think a lot of
Exactly.
people are going to find out very soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think a lot
anyway,
of
I
people have
guess that's what,
already
yeah.
found out because they don't have a job.
Well,
So
and that's tragic, right?
yeah.
To me, yeah, they're, it's a lot of that is unavoidable. Well, it should be unavoidable, not the fault of necessarily the person who's lost the
No.
job, right? I think we all should
No.
be more responsible about understanding where AI is and where it isn't, right? That's one thing.
No.
But there are a lot of other forces at play, right? Even if people do
Mhm.
understand it, sometimes profit takes over, and again,
Oh
satisficing, right?
yeah.
So, we can be cynical about that. But yeah, I think it's all the more reason for us to be thinking about how to prepare, especially for people who are in between jobs right now, right? This is the time to reinvent. So
Mhm.
I guess, so maybe I'll amend that. I guess these are my parting thoughts is that we're in a
Yeah.
reinvention and
We are.
yeah, and we need to create more supportive, um, structure and practices towards that reinvention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Because
that's the takeaway.
yeah, because intelligence as we know it, it's on its last legs.
There are ways to assist certain people, but you're going to have to focus in on what AI can't do.
Yeah, I think that's the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
But also, I think to the webinar we've just been at, I think that there have been things that in human intelligence we've neglected that
Yeah.
AI does free us up to do now. We get to pay attention to the things
Yes.
we've neglected, right? So,
Hmm.
okay, we have efficiencies here, which means now, we've got the
Hmm.
bandwidth to be able to adopt practices that people really haven't really developed for at least 10 years,
Yeah.
maybe further, right? We just kind of
Hmm.
let it fall by the wayside while we've been, chasing, Intel du jour.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Is that our final answer? I think
Well,
it is.
I'll still go back, maybe a couple of lines and saying that, Intel as we know it will no longer exist. I think that's probably the final answer.
Yeah.
so the implication is that we need to be really rethinking about what this is going to look like in the
Yeah.
next 1 to 3 years and beyond. And there's just going to be leaps, right? So once we settle on an answer in a year or two, well, be prepared, right, to rethink that.
Yeah,
I think
there'll
we're
be
just in this
another
constant,
iteration.
yeah, this is
There's
just a
always
constant,
another iteration.
exactly. This is the new normal,
Right.
right? And in a way, my brain likes that, but I know it's exhausting, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I think for a lot of people who are in this field, and we don't talk about this enough too, how do we maintain our sanity through this and intel,
Yeah.
right? Because people who are in intel, insights, knowledge work, yeah, we've got the sword hanging over, for many people, the sword is hanging over their heads, or the writing's on the wall, however you want to see this. At the same time, you don't know where to begin in terms of skills and expansion. You're maybe getting mixed messages from your organization, if you're getting any message at all, right? Because
Hmm.
leaders are uncertain. Or you may be getting a message in your organization because they have a particular digital strategy, but beyond, but they haven't necessarily incorporated your work, right,
Yeah.
into that definition. So that's
Hmm.
another. Or maybe digital strategy is misaligned with the reality that's out there. Maybe you see it, but top leadership does not. I've seen that
Right.
time and again, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of different iterations of this. And I think that, and I guess this is the health coach in me now, right? I think about how also how it impacts people's well-being, because
Oh
that
yeah.
impacts our cognition, it impacts our performance. Because if we're overwhelmed and we've got a heavy cognitive load, if we
Hmm.
are in decision support or if we're decision makers, inherently we're going to be stumbling into higher risk because we're not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I digress there.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing leads to another.
Yeah.
I think we've really clarified a lot of what's going on, and now we just have to figure out what to do.
Yeah. And then there are maps for this and there, so yeah, we've talked about at the end of the webinar, there'll be workshops and stuff coming up. But
Yeah.
I think importantly though, these non-workshop, non-course conversations are just as important, because we are, even
Hmm.
3 years ago, I believe it's 3 years ago now, I shared a roadmap, a generic roadmap, right, on
Hmm.
how to, expand into Gen AI. And so yeah, I mean, there are tools out there now. Obviously, iterate. Like you said, we have to reiterate and revise what we do constantly now. Um, but yeah, it's this we're putting stuff out there.
Yep.
So well, I guess with this,
We're getting there.
yeah,
Well, this has been a fun day, and I'm hoping that some of the strategies are going to work. So,
yeah. Well, and I think importantly too, I think to help people gain some clarity, and then with that, they can take first steps towards situational
hmm.
awareness. And then
Hmm.
from there, begin to put out, to set their planning. And
Hmm.
and that planning is not going to be typical project planning, because in many cases, there will be no endpoint. Now, there
Yeah.
will obviously be metrics and so forth. You can still obviously, you know, track your performance, but it's just, this thing is just
Yeah.
constantly
We
moving.
have to continue to evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, I like that. I like that. Let's end there. Let's end there.
Okay.
Well, thanks for anybody who stuck with us through this conversation. And I hope that maybe some of you have been listening to this, maybe, at 2x or 3x time, just to save time, because I know
Yeah.
we just kept going with this. But thanks for that. And also, this is recorded, so we're going to be posting it online. Post in the comments what you're thinking so that we can capture that as well. Or just ping us as well. Can certainly, I think you can probably see our names here, but certainly it'll be in the description. I'll put the information there where you can find us, and we'd love to know your thoughts. So thanks everybody, and thank
Yes,
you,
we would.
Claudia.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.